So, Virgil Williams, your new film Mudbound has just premiered on Netflix and in select theaters to wonderful reviews and strong reactions from audiences. Why do you think this movie strikes such a chord with the people who see it?
Oh, wow, that's a really, really great question. I think that Mudbound is kind of all of us. I think that every one of us has someone or several people that they can connect their own personal history to, their own belief systems to, within that group of six characters that exists. And I also think that the more things change, the more they stay the same. It's a period piece. It's a movie about a particular era in our country, but you look at the climate and the times as they are now, and again, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I also think that it is because people can connect to it, and because it's so searing in its honesty that way. But Dee really elevated the honesty level. That what people are getting a look at is who we were. And in that look, we see who we are, and I think in that look, we maybe see who we can be. So I think there's many reasons. There's a lot of footholds to connect to in this movie.
Well, take us back to the beginning of your involvement with it. What attracted you to this novel by Hilary Jordan?
Yeah, the book found me about 8 years ago now. And I was actively looking for novels to adapt. I'm primarily a television writer, so I was looking for books to adapt. And my agency sent me a stack of books, and Mudbound was the third one, and it really grabbed me by the throat. It felt like a responsibility. It felt necessary, and quite frankly, it felt like To Kill a Mockingbird for this generation. Because of the revolving POV that Hilary Jordan uses in her novel, it gives this sort of illusion of being kinetic. It gives this illusion of being really fast and constantly on the move. But the story is just really the story baton is being passed from character to character, and the story really marches on underneath that. And it is incredibly cinematic in its epic quality. And on a personal level, I'm half black, half Puerto Rican. So my grandfather fought in World War II, and he was in the 92nd Infantry Division. That was a colored unit, as they called it back then, the Buffalo Soldiers. And his brother, on the other hand, fought in a white unit because he could pass. So Jamie and Ronsel, those two characters, I had sort of almost a biological connection to both of those guys, my own personal history. So it felt like some kids needed context. That's that To Kill a Mockingbird piece. And also that it felt necessary.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, the novel has all these different characters and character arcs. Obviously, when you're adapting it into a screenplay, you've got to find a way to balance it kind of equally, in a sense. I mean, can you talk about how you were able to bring all of these different character arcs into one cohesive script?
It was a very difficult task, and there wasn't sort of a thing. It was more like tending a garden, where there were weeds everywhere, and it required a sort of constant vigilance. For me, it was really about structure and rhythm and pace and balance. Maintaining those things, the sort of flashlight in the dark, as it were, was the friendship between Jamie and Ronsel. Another touchstone was the triangle between Jamie, Laura, and Henry. Those two things really helped me keep in line and helped maintain that balance and sort of set the standard for what the pace and the rhythm should be. Because that when you get into the mine of a screen, digging the mine of a screenplay, it sort of reveals itself to you, and it was sort of just up to me to again be mindful of pace and rhythm and balance. And all the while making sure that the story kept moving forward, just like it does in the novel. So, even in retrospect, I wish there had been some sort of silver bullet, but it was just a lot of work, man.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the central relationship between Jamie and Ronsel. I think it's about You would know better than I would. I've only seen the movie the one time, but I believe it's about an hour into the movie before those two even meet. So, I mean, can you talk about leading up to that point and introducing the different families and all the setup?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you sort of need all that real estate, you know, to get sort of nuts and boltsy about it. I knew that we needed to take at least one lap through each of the characters at the outset from jump. So that sort of needs to happen first, and um, uh, uh, once that lap is taken, the story starts to sort of unfold. But all the while, you know, Jamie and Runsell they're still there. They may not occupy screen time. They may not occupy. They might even be in dialogue. They're still sort of present, because anytime you see Hap or Florence, Runsell's always sort of there. Anytime you see Laura or Henry, Jamie's always sort of there because she's in love with him, and Jamie's Henry's brother. So there's always sort of the specter of those two. And the trick was making sure it was sort of like the English Channel. You know, we started on one end in France, and on the other meet in the middle, because there really is a collision that has to occur, a collision and then a fusing, a galvanization that has to occur between those two guys. And you need all that real estate so that when they do meet, their connection is sudden, and it is sort of unbreakable in many ways, because that's what all that time is sort of dedicated to. But, you know, primarily I was working towards the thrust of their collision.
And the film deals with so many different themes. I mean, obviously racism is at the front and center of the film. You also deal with family, the idea of brotherhood, how economic class as well. Can you talk about exploring those themes within the writing? I mean, having them there and present, but not, I guess, not hammering audiences over the head in your writing with these things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great, and I'm glad. Thank you for pointing that out, because as a writer, I'm sort of infinitely insecure about everything that I do. So thank you for pointing that out. But that was important. I never wanted to be on a soapbox. You know, the novel doesn't preach. The novel just is, and that was just about being honest. And I think that if you're honest, there's really not there's not a lot of push to any of that stuff. That was really about concentrating on the story and concentrating on the characters, and that stuff just is. You don't need to beep that horn. That horn is beeping, and as long as I think, as insofar as the writing, it was a sort of dedication to story and a dedication to emotional honesty and scene integrity. Because it was very surgical. I mean, quite frankly, there was a lot of surgery involved. So a lot of sort of story involved. But it really did have to just be about the characters and the story, and all that stuff, you know, only sort of makes it sink. Like it's like a good bass line, you know, that's sort of driving a thing. It's not the star of the show. It's not the lead guitar. It's not the singer. It's always kind of there, keeping us on pace. So that was about, I think, the rhythm part, you know, the pace and the rhythm also helped with that. You know, I don't think that it matters what the story is about if the characters are spherical and not two-dimensional. And I think if they are true and honest, you know, quite frankly, a story about anything works. But when you add those volatile chemicals into that equation, what you get is Mudbound.
Was there a scene that was particularly difficult for you to write, or something that was you had a hard time cracking?
You know, the thing that was sort of hardest to crack, the code that was hardest to crack was that 6-voice rotation, and how that was going to fit into the narrative. So I tried to write to that a little bit. For instance, when we were with Jamie, I tried to write to exterior, rainy, cold. When we were with Runsell, I tried to write to interior, claustrophobic, hot and sweaty. When we were with Laura, I tried to write to the romanticism of things. When we were with Henry, I tried to write to high and wide. I didn't want to give a lot of camera directions. That's not my job. But I tried to make him small against the land, because he was in love with the land. With Hap and Florence, I tried to write a lot of light, a lot of sunlight, a lot of warmth, a lot of family, a lot of love, a lot of spirituality. So there were those things that in the writing I tried to tend to, and to really, again, it was all about honesty. What was difficult was the lynching, though. That scene was exceedingly difficult. You know, even thinking about it, because it would happen in this very room. I mean, it's so funny. You know, years ago, my wife would walk in to the door that's closed right there, and she knew that if I was crying, I was okay. I was just in the Delta, and that was hard. That was hard. You know, because I'm really just an actor with a computer that does it by himself with nobody watching. What I mean by that is I have to sort of emotionally put myself in the place in order for it to land on the page, and that was hard. That was very difficult. It's difficult to watch, you know. Yeah,
it certainly is difficult to watch, but it's a testament to the filmmaking and to the acting and the writing that it is as powerful as it is. So congratulations on that. At what point did Dee Rees become involved, and how did the script change with her involvement?
Yeah, about 4 or 5 years into the process, I mean, so Sally Jo Effinson and Carl Effinson were the ones that originally paid me to, which Miracle Number One, I mean, any movie is sort of a series of miracles, daisy chain of miracles. And Miracle Number One, I think, was Sally Jo and Carl paying me to adapt the book and sort of believing in my belief that we could absolutely take all 6 voices and make it work, that we could use the voiceover, that we could do it. So that was sort of Miracle Number One. And then it took us, give or take, about a year, because I was on staff on a show called Criminal Minds at the time. So I would go to Criminal Minds during the day, and at night spend a little time with my family, and then I'd be like, okay, I'm going to the Delta, and then I would go adapt this book in here. This is really cool to me that we're having this interview right now. Then there were George Tillman for a time was attached to direct it. Other people kind of fell in and out as financing was elusive, and then it sort of languished for about 4 years, as feature scripts are wont to do in this town. And quite frankly, you know, everything happens for a reason. I don't think the world was ready for it yet. 12 Years a Slave hadn't really landed yet. And, you know, only Dee Rees could have directed this movie. So 4 or 5 years in, I might, you know, give or take a few months, the script got into the hands of a producer named Cassian Elwes. And I love to hear the story of how, you know, that he tells when he first read the script. And then he got it to Dee. And then things started to fall into place. And I want to say that was probably 2015. And then about a month before we started shooting, Dee's changes came. And then we started shooting. That was 2016. So it changed. I know that she really wanted to really blow out the Jackson family, specifically Hap Jackson and Florence Jackson. And, you know, again, only Dee could have done this. And if you saw Pariah and how honest that was and beautiful that was, and if you saw Bessie and quite frankly how sort of stark that was, she did it again. I mean, she did it again. She did it again times 10. So the Jacksons were a big thing that she wanted to do. I know that she really wanted to sort of really explore the currency of whiteness. I know that she really sort of wanted to blow all of that class and race melange, that sort of stew that exists, really blow that out. I know that she wanted to really expose the sort of white sharecroppers that existed. And I know that, again, I say only Dee could have done this because she brought a ton of personal history to the story. Her grandmother, I believe, wrote this astounding journal from which she was able to draw. And this was a woman who was from the era and the time and the place. So she was able to draw an incredible amount of personal history that, I mean, you see it, you can feel it, you can smell it in the film. So, you know, the reason it took so long is because it needed the world to get ready, and it needed Dee to be ready to do it. Again, everything happens for a reason. So it's been almost 8 years now, and it's just astounding.
And you guys have been making the rounds with this movie ever since Sundance. You've played at other festivals, and
Yeah.
now people are going to be able to see it in theaters and on Netflix. What do you hope that audiences take away from it?
Oh, goodness. You know, it's so fun. It's really the theme of the movie, and sort of encapsulates what drew me to the book is, you know, we're all, it doesn't matter what color, what creed, what religion, what gender you are. We are all stuck here on earth together, bound by the mud. And it's the mud of hate and ignorance and fear. And the only way out of that, the only way to get clean is together and with love. I mean, it has to end with love. And I think that you have to fight for love, something that just happens to you, that sometimes it's important, especially now. It's kind of uncanny how relevant it is now, because these modern day times are making us, it is polarizing our nation, and you are forced to choose a side. And you know, it's sometimes you got to fight for love. And I hope that kids take away some context, some history, and they understand what it was like then and what it is like now. And I hope that they understand they got to fight for some love.
Well, certainly one of the extraordinary things that this movie does, and it's a testament not just to the power of this movie, but to the power of cinema in general, is how much empathy it creates for the characters, and shows that no matter what our differences are, we're really not that different after all.
Yep, after all, it is, and it is ultimately about love and family.
Absolutely. Virgil Williams, thank you so much. Congratulations on the movie. I'm so looking forward to people being able to watch it on Netflix now and in the theaters and have these discussions.
Yeah, great. Good. Thank you so much. I appreciate you and your time.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
You too.